Zen Wisdom. How to live with clarity, lightness, and wholeness every day. Have you ever felt that even with everything around you, there's a silent emptiness in your heart? Today, in just a few minutes, you'll discover 3 secrets that Zen has preserved for centuries. 1. The art of finding meaning in small actions like preparing tea. 2. The practice of conscious detachment learned in moments of emptiness. 3. The wisdom of living in alignment with the present, even in the midst of modern chaos. And most importantly, I promise that by the end of this video, you'll know how to apply each of these principles to live with more lightness, clarity, and true presence, not just in theory, but in your daily life. Welcome to Axiom Sage. Today, I invite you to pause the outside world for a few moments, as if we were in a Zen temple. Unhurried, just us and the wisdom this ancient path offers. Before we go on, close your eyes for 5 seconds. Feel your breath. Feel your body seated here. Feel the space between your heart and your mind aligning with this very moment. Mindfulness is not a trend, it's presence. And Zen, which is pure mindfulness, is a master at bringing that presence into our lives. Now, I'm going to share an insight that may surprise you, yet carries a quiet kind of courage. True Zen isn't found in grand moments, but in the simplicity of washing the dishes. This phrase may shake you, especially if you're searching for big solutions to big problems. Zen reminds you, real transformation begins where life happens, at the sink, on the road, in conversation, over a meal. This is the first invitation. Silence the urgency. Breathe with awareness and get ready. We're about to begin the transformation. Picture ancient Japan, monks in wooden temples practicing Chan, which would later become Zen. They weren't seeking enlightenment through pressure or passivity. They sought presence in every conscious movement. This story begins in the 6th century with Bodhidharma, who journeyed from India to Japan, bringing a teaching. Awakening arises when the mind meets simple, direct existence. No extinguished rituals, no mechanical devotion, just awareness. 5 minutes there, in silence, no seeking, no explanation, just presence. And this simple practice became the foundation of Zen, preparing tea with precision, tending to the garden as if tending to one's own mind, listening to the wind, the murmur of water, the sound of your own heart. Zen doesn't argue beliefs. It says, look, observe, and let nature teach you. We are about to dive into the first principle, acting with presence in small gestures. When you put water on to boil, when you comb your hair, when you reply to a message, you can choose to be fully there. That action creates a field of presence, and that field protects you from haste, anxiety, and urgency. But there's something few people talk about. Apparent simplicity, in order to be lived, requires great inner courage. Up to this point, you've already entered the Zen atmosphere. You've breathed with intention, immersed yourself in ancestral wisdom, and begun to feel the first echo of that subtle presence. Now, let's explore the ancient origins and meaning of mindfulness applied to the small actions of daily life, and how that ancestral wisdom echoes directly in the discoveries of contemporary positive psychology, especially in the concept of flow state, developed by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Flow state, according to him, is that rare moment when you're so immersed in what you're doing, time disappears, the ego goes quiet, and all that exists is now. In Zen, that's not rare, it's natural. You'll begin to notice that a simple act, like sweeping the floor, folding clothes, or watering a plant, can become a portal to concentration, balance, and serenity. It's not about making the everyday more spiritual. It's about remembering that the spiritual was never separate from the everyday. I was deeply impacted by this practice too. I remember a day when I washed a single plate with so much attention that I felt an instant peace, as if all my worries had evaporated. And then I realized it wasn't the plate, it was my presence. That experience changed how I live my life. Before we continue, if you feel that this content is unlike any productivity method or minimalism technique you've encountered before, subscribe now. Here at Axiom Sage, brands don't matter. Slogans don't matter. What matters is being with yourself, silencing the noise, transforming small actions into life wisdom. Now, let's go deeper into the first of the three powerful principles that guide this. Journey 1. The art of living with presence in small gestures. When you prepare tea, in that sacred moment of Chan O-U, everything matters. The temperature of the water, the warmth of the cup, the sound of the pouring liquid, the gesture that holds the porcelain with reverence. That ritual has, for decades, taught the power of now. You understand the origin of Zen. Bodhidharma crossed oceans to teach that enlightenment isn't some extraordinary event, but the everyday turned into ritual. Picture yourself in that temple. A monk walks, taps the stick to sweep, serves tea with a dry mouth. Everything becomes prayer. This ancestral practice reminds us, simplicity is not superficial, it is radical. You'll realize mindfulness doesn't require free time, it requires presence in micro gestures. Zen teaches us that an agitated mind disrupts the details. When you're distracted, even washing a dish becomes internal conflict. But when you bring attention to that act, feeling it, noticing each splash, the sound of soap sliding, that's where inner silence is born. The mind slows. The body relaxes. The breath aligns. And this doesn't just happen with tea or dishes. The toothbrush, the shirt you fold, the email you write, these gestures are portals. They are subtle. They are invisible to many, but they carry wisdom, and science confirms it. In positive psychology, the study of flow, a state of deep focus and pleasurable immersion, often emerges during simple, repetitive activities when done with full attention. Research shows people who practice mindfulness in daily actions experience less anxiety, greater well-being, and clearer emotional awareness. One study with Zen gardeners revealed that just 10 minutes of meditative gardening drastically reduced cortisol, the stress hormone. Another study with amateur cooks found that those who practice mindful cooking report higher emotional satisfaction and a stronger sense of purpose. But here's something few talk about, and it might change everything. This practice takes courage. The courage to let go of multitasking. The courage to put your phone down, even for a few minutes. The courage to slow down in a world that demands speed. This is the Zen courage of presence, a quiet resistance invisible to the external chaos. One day, in the middle of the city's chaos, I stood before a sink full of dirty dishes. I was tired, irritable, anxious. Before reacting, I took a breath, and I started washing each plate as if it were a healing ritual. My breath calmed, my mind cleared. The tension melted away. That moment taught me presence is a choice, and every conscious step transforms the moment. Before we continue, if this content feels different from the usual superficial tips on productivity or minimalism you've seen, if this video touches something deeper inside you, subscribe now. Presence isn't a slogan, it's a practice. And this is the space where we'll plant those seeds together with consistency, music, and words that truly resonate. Now that you've felt the impact of living with presence and small gestures, we're ready to explore a principle that may transform how you relate to the world and to yourself. 2. The beauty of emptying. This is not about giving up. It's not about losing. Emptying in Zen is about creating space for what truly matters to bloom. Zen masters say the bowl is useful because of the empty space within it. Have you ever felt overwhelmed, even when you're not doing that much? Maybe your physical space is clean, but your mind screams, replays arguments, relives pain, simulates futures. That's the invisible overload. And in Zen, we learn that emptying is the highest act of wisdom. Instead of filling with more content, more ideas, more distractions, the invitation is to let go of the excess that suffocates. In a Zen garden, the space between the stones is just as important as the stones themselves. In a haiku, the silence between lines carries as much meaning as the words. Have you ever noticed that when you're feeling sad or anxious, your mind tends to seek distractions? More videos, more notifications, more food, more demands? And that creates a constant noise, one that blocks your inner listening. Emptiness in Zen is the opposite of that urgency. It's a silent yes to the pause. It's the radical choice not to react right away, to simply breathe. Science helps us understand this. Neuroscience studies show that the default mode network, the brain's mental rumination loop, deactivates during silent contemplative practices. In other words, when you quiet the noise, healing begins. At a Zen retreat in rural Nara, I met a 39-year-old woman, a businesswoman, a mother, always connected, always ahead. But inside, she was exhausted. During the silent days, no phone, no stimulation, no social media, she cried for the first 2 days. She felt empty, lost, but on the third day, she saw a single drop of water sliding down a leaf. And in that silent moment, she said, "For the first time in years, I felt peace without a reason." That is the kind of emptiness that doesn't scare. It supports you. Perhaps the greatest mistake of modern life is to confuse fullness with wholeness. Zen teaches us that wholeness lives in space and pauses in the in-between. It's not about adding something new. It's about letting go of what no longer serves. And right now, you might be feeling it, that something inside you is tired of carrying so much. Maybe the most powerful insight is this: you don't need to understand everything today. You don't need to fix it all right now. You only need to pause. Now, look at what we've discovered so far. A simple gesture done with presence becomes living meditation. Intentional emptying done with courage becomes inner spaciousness. Together, they form the Zen rhythm of a life that breathes, a rhythm that lets you feel without drowning, think without losing yourself, act without destroying your peace. Presence and emptiness are sisters. One reveals the moment. The other reveals the space. Now, if you can, close your eyes. Sit comfortably. Let your hands rest wherever they want, and just breathe. Inhale through your nose. Hold for a second. Exhale slowly. Feel your body. Notice the sounds around you without judging. Now sense. Where is the tension? Imagine that tension releasing, like smoke dissolving into the air. Say silently in your mind, I allow myself to empty. Take one more breath. Now, just feel. There is still a third, subtle, and deeply necessary principle for our times, accepting imperfection as part of harmony. Known as wabi-sabi, this Japanese concept reminds us that true beauty lives in impermanence, imperfection, and incompleteness. Nothing lasts, nothing is finished, and nothing is perfect. Zen tradition. This wisdom is an antidote to the perfectionism that exhausts us. You don't need to be flawless. You don't need to have it all figured out. You simply need to allow yourself to feel beauty in what already is, even if it's cracked, even if it's simple, even if it's still becoming. Begin to see poetry in what you once called flaws, in the trace of time on your face, in the weariness in your eyes, in the crack on the wall that reveals history, in the trembling tone of your voice when you feel deeply. This is the soul of wabi-sabi, reverent acceptance of reality as it is, without filters, without the constant pressure to polish. In practice, this is freedom. It's laying down the weight of needing to appear perfect, and embracing the lightness of being at peace with what is. Now look at what you've experienced here with me. 1. You learned that simple gestures, when done with presence, reveal silence and power. 2. You discovered that emptying with courage creates space for the essential to bloom. 3. And now you feel that welcoming imperfection with reverence brings you closer to true beauty. These 3 principles are not just beautiful ideas. They are practices of freedom, a way of living where the soul breathes lighter, clearer, and more fully present. Perhaps for the first time in a long time, you've experienced what it means to be whole in silence. It's not the absence of thoughts. It's no longer being ruled by them. And if you've made it this far, something in you longs for this kind of simplicity, not as a trend, but as a way of life. If this made sense to you, subscribe. Not for more videos, but for a space of contemplation and depth. This channel is made for those who are tired of noise and ready to return to what truly matters. Click subscribe and come back anytime you need to empty. And remember who you are. Today you walked through the presence and gestures and the silence of emptiness. 2 faces of the same truth. Simplicity is the wisdom of the now. You don't need to change your entire life. You just need to change the way you live this moment. When tea is served with presence, the whole world grows still. Take that with you. Thank you for your presence. Return anytime you need to breathe with clarity and live with lightness. See you next time.